right, welcome back to another episode of Talking Badgers, powered by Athlon Sports. This week you got me and Ryan. Jason is in Nairobi doing missionary work right now, and Dylan is on a world tour in a hot air balloon, so hopefully they can join us next week. But for right now, you have to deal with us. Ryan, how's it going?
It's going great, brother. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Got a nice little nap in after work today, so feeling pretty refreshed. Ready to crush some high lifes. And this episode going to be another one of our kind of mailbag episodes. Those have been fun to record, so we'd love to keep doing those for our fans. Speaking of the fans, shout out to everyone who's been subscribing to the channel. We just passed 900 subscribers, so thank you to everyone who listens to us. Glad you guys enjoy it, and hopefully we can keep growing. One of the first questions that we had is, can Coop get a whiteboard and have a high life counter? I would like to let you know I ordered a whiteboard off Amazon today. It should be hanging in the background hopefully in the next week or two. But for right now, part of my penmanship, I don't even know if you can see this, high life counter. We're at 1. I had 1 during the pre-show. So we're already at 1, boys, and we'll keep it going. But we'll get into some questions here from the fans. Ryan, I'll throw this one to you. This is from Deputy Dong. 10 out of 10 name, Deputy Dong. Do we think this team would have beaten Purdue and Rutgers this badly with Ches? I think that's a great question.
I think yes, just because if you look at the workload that he had, it was probably going to be similar to what Dupree got. Now, does he have the ceiling that we hope Dupree has? No, but it's not like Darian Dupree. You look at his numbers and they were like otherworldly. That's, like I've said before many times about teams like Minnesota, is Wisconsin's floor is another team's ceiling. And I think with Ches and all those injuries, his ceiling is kind of now where Dupree's floor is. If this was later in the year, I would say that there would be a bigger discrepancy. But where Ches was and where Dupree is now, I think they still would have smoked both pretty easily.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the way we ran the ball and the way Walker's taken kind of over the past few weeks. Yeah, big dude, the biggest of dogs. He definitely would have been my big dog last week, by the way. I saw that little comment you guys had at the end of the show. The original big dog, how could you not give it to him? But no, I'm with you. I think would we have beaten him this badly? Yes, I think so. But do I think does Ches make a difference in those games? No. I mean, the guy's hurt. The guy's banged up. What do you expect him to do? And you could clearly see the first few games of the season. It's man, this is not the same guy. He doesn't have the explosiveness that we're used to seeing out of him. And injuries and father time are undefeated, man. Unfortunately, he's dealing with both. But
I think part of that too.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I think part of that too is you segue to even this thing that's over my shoulder here from a different time and a different topic with the Detroit Lions. And you think about Aiden Hutchinson and they talk about, oh, they should do this or they should do that in the NFL because he snapped his leg. Well, Ches literally snapped his ankle at Purdue. Yeah. And I think as much as we want to talk about getting this ligament repaired and this kind of off-season rehab, he literally snapped a bone as a runner. It's not like he is swinging a baseball bat and it's his front leg.
Yeah.
As a running back, you need your lower body, and snapping your leg. I don't know is it fair to ever think he was going to ever be the same after that kind of injury to a running back at a high level? How many running backs come back?
But we all had hope because we love Ches. How can you not love the guy? So everyone hoped we'd see that, and then the season started, and you're fuck.
Yeah, I think
that checks out.
Carried it. It's just, I don't know. Looking back at it objectively, was it fair to even think that he could get back to there? Obviously, he probably did. He's a warrior and a competitor, but just it was almost we almost set him up for failure, thinking he should have been the old Ches, and that's probably impossible to get to that point.
Yeah, completely agree. And just another thing too, I just love seeing Dupree on the field more. So it's a beautiful thing to watch, man.
Well, and it's more hope for the future because even if he's giving you what Ches is giving you now, you have the hope of what could he be when he's not a true freshman versus this is a 6-year senior. We've already seen better days are behind him. It's almost like you had to make that transition anyway.
Well, and it's just wild how literally probably 95% of the Badgers fan base was clamoring for us to play the young guys more. We play the young guys more, and all of a sudden we're blowing teams out, and people are feeling better. Why? Wild that I can see that from my couch, eating potato chips and pounding highlights every Saturday. But it takes a little bit for the people in the building. Also, one thing I got to say, I still have my disdain for this player, and I always will, just a little bit. Jack Nelson been balling, bro.
When he didn't get nicked up, yeah, he was balling.
He been balling. So, shout out Jack. Also, shout out Big Kev, dude. Love to see him getting reps in there. He's gonna be so good. Like, just please don't leave. He's gonna be so good.
Yeah, he's a monster.
Yeah. All right, we will move on. We got another one from Deputy Dong here. We're going back to back Dong, first time ever on the show. Do we think cutting Ches, which I don't know if we want to call it cutting Ches, but word it however you please, brother. Do you think like us cutting Ches made a difference, or was Purdue and Rutgers that bad? And then also, how do you think that conversation went between Ches and the coaches? I think that's the more important part.
Yeah,
is what the conversation was, because we kind of just touched on. We both really don't think it would have made a huge difference. Rutgers, if you get down by 10, they're cooked, and Purdue's just Purdue. They're garbage. But how do you think that conversation went between Ches and the coaches and kind of upper management, if you will?
I have to imagine it wouldn't have went that bad. And the only reason I say that is I feel like we see this youth movement that started, and a lot of times coaches, like a lot of established coaches, would never say you're going to lose your job based on injury. So I think like earlier in the year, no one was really banged up. And then last year, we didn't get a lot of youth movement in because no one really got injured. Not that you root for injuries, but it's like they don't want to replace a veteran with a young guy unless they have a reason to. And I think with Ches in particular, I think coming back, they're probably like, hey, we know, because even in fall camp, he didn't look like himself. Like, I don't have to be a running backs coach to look at him and see, like, he's not the Ches that was possibly going to unseat Braylon Allen last year, a few weeks into the year. Like, somebody with super untrained running back eyes, like myself, could see he wasn't the same. So I wonder if it was more of something like, I can't imagine that Fickle or Spalding or even Longo had the conversation with them like that day. I feel like that's probably like a fall camp thing. And it was like, hey, we're going to give you, the first 4 or 5 games, let you get a run. Let's see what it is. If you're not looking like your old self and we're not winning, or, whatever coach speak they want to give, I just have a hard time believing they were just like, you know what, Ches, thanks for what you did. Here's the door. Like, that doesn't seem like kind of what they've done. That doesn't seem like something that they would do, but you never know.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, to me, somehow I'm a manager and supervisor at my job. They trust me with that kind of responsibility to basically babysit grown adults.
Send them the link for the show. They might change their mind.
Right. But just the way I'd approach it, I feel like this is probably how both sides approached it. I agree with you. They maybe could have gone over this in fall camp. Like, hey, we're going to give you a shot, but at some point, like if we see you can't play, then we're going to have to make a change. But I feel like they probably both got together. It's like Ches knows he's not the same. He's not dumb. Like, players hate to admit that, because you always want to be. They always think they're going to get back to that peak of their career, because that's just the kind of the drive these people have to play at this level. But like, I feel like the coaches and him were like, hey man, like, clearly something's wrong. Like, you need to heal your body. Like, especially if you want a shot at the next level, because before that major injury, I mean, he would have been a late round pick or undrafted free agent probably.
Oh, 100%. Especially if you saw some of the people that went like later after Braylon went.
Yeah.
Ches could have got a run somewhere.
And so, like, to me, that's, as a coach, is like, we need to do what's best for the team. That's always the most important. But 2, you got to do what's best for the player. And I feel like this is what was best for both of them. And it probably went smooth. Like, it's one of those meetings where it's you can kind of both agree. There's no issues. I don't think there's any bad blood between them. Do you?
Well, I think you could probably tell around the pro day. Like, does he do his pro day here? Does he do it at like
True.
some like not that he would do it at like Boston College or somewhere where he previously was, or go back to Clemson like Jason Maitre did, which could tell you everything you needed to know about that situation. But I think if he comes back and he does like the pro day and stuff, like I would imagine everything's fine. It's probably very similar to last year when after the season was over, Braylon didn't really work out here. He went and worked out in Phoenix or somewhere and then came back for the pro day. So it's like I bet Chez is just going to go do rehab. I'm sure he's got all his school done. So just go through all the rehab and then work on your speed training. Start combine stuff now. Because even after a couple games, you could see like no coach will ever admit it, but like if they needed his veteran leadership in the locker room, like they would have wanted him to stay around. But it's also kind of like you lost 2 games, you got a gauntlet of a schedule. We're probably not going to the college football playoff. Do you want to hang around for the Music City Bowl, or do you want to like rest your body up for 6 months and then really make a run at your dream? Kind of to your point.
No, just being devil's advocate here. Is him leaving, like, does that make you question his leadership?
I think
it doesn't. Sometimes you got to look out for number one, and that's you.
Yeah, but then sometimes I also, to be fair, have called people quitters for doing something similar. So I think it all depends on how that conversation goes. Was it his decision? Was it a mutual decision? Was it the coach's decision? Like for me, you and I obviously have this off screen where we've talked about it, where I thought what Devontae Adams did with his hamstring and then wanting a trade in the middle of the season and then wanting a trade and then obviously he has a hamstring until he gets traded. Now the hamstring is good.
Hey, hamstring's looking good. Probably going to play this week.
Exactly. Somehow just miraculous. To me, that's some quitter nonsense. So if Chez like
baller shit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess baller's Spanish for quitter, but if Chez, they said Chez, we got to get some young guys in here. We need you to kind of take more of a leadership role in the conversation. Like back to the original that question that you had or that Dong had. If it gets back to like, we want you to take a diminished role and be a leader, and he didn't want to stay, then yes, that speaks to his leadership, and he's 100% a quitter. But it doesn't seem that way. We have some sources in the industry, obviously around the program, and they don't believe that he was a quitter, that it was a mutual thing. So I'm going to tend to look that way. But yeah, like if you said, if it was the other way around, where it's like, hey, we want you to be a leader, but we need to cut your role back, and he quit, I'd be singing a much different tune.
Yeah, and I don't think it was that way. Like I said, just kind of being devil's advocate and posing that question. Also, shout out to Devontae Adams, who definitely listens to this podcast every week. I love you. I can't wait to gamble on you this weekend. He's about to go nuts, dude. This can be beautiful.
Yeah, for another loss.
Hey, they're right in the thick of it in the AFC East, all right? Okay, next question. This comes from Marine Matt 552. Thank you for your service. Hopefully, respect the troops, dude.
I knew that's where you were going. I was getting my ready.
I love that, dude. Is Braedyn Locke now the de facto offensive coordinator? I feel like this is, kind of tongue in cheek, but like, I mean, we've all been calling for us to throw the ball down the field, and I'll be the first to. I tweeted it out 3 weeks ago. Like, hey, I just want to get out ahead in front of it. I may have been wrong in believing in Braedyn Locke. Well, now I want to get out ahead of it. I may have been right in believing in Braedyn Locke. I know we played 2 garbage teams, but the completion percentage might not be incredible. But man, does he love to rip it down the field. And that's what the Badgers, like the fans, have been calling for a long time. We need to open this offense up. And look what it's done to the running game. And then also look at Vinny Anthony. Like, what are we doing here, dude? This guy is incredible. We need to be taking like 4 to 6 shots downfield to him a game, I feel like. At least 15 yards plus. Like, this dude's a game breaker, but I don't know if I'd say like Locke's the de facto OC, but he changes the offense, and we talked about it weeks ago. Like, maybe they change the offense to fit his skill set more. That's what good coaches are supposed to do. So who knows? We're not in the building, but like I said, we played 2 garbage teams. But I loved what I've seen on Locke. as far as like taking shots down the field. Not like you can't be afraid to throw interceptions. And I feel we didn't see enough of Van Dyke, but last year I feel like that was a Tanner Mordecai thing, where it's like you like sometimes he was afraid, or like you look out in Colorado, like Shedeur Sanders, like that dude will take a 15-yard sack instead of trying to force it and like double cut or like take a shot downfield because he doesn't want his stats to be messed up with interceptions. Like I don't want quarterbacks like that. If you're not throwing like 8 to 10 interceptions in a season, unless you're like Aaron Rodgers or somebody, like are you even taking shots downfield?
Yeah, you definitely don't want a stat hunter, and I think that's kind of where like people like Shedeur and I would even see Dylan Gabriel to some extent. I watched that Ohio State Oregon game. He didn't
banger of a game.
I mean, he threw downtown a couple times to Tez Johnson, but for the most part, he's very much like Mordecai, where he was risk averse, like your Shedeur Sanders, risk averse. I would actually say now, obviously, he doesn't have the title of OC, but just kind of going in that same vein, I would say he is the de facto OC, and here's why: because I don't think any offensive coordinator that wasn't confident in their quarterback to make all of those checks that he does, because remember Longo said he made like 16 of 17 correct checks. There's one thing in doing that. There's another thing in doing that and having your offensive coordinator tell the media that.
That's a great point, Ryan.
Because it really if he does that and you don't like it, you're not saying that shit to the media. Like, yeah, I hated that he did it, but he was right 16 to 17 times. Because it's like, how many times have he, like Dylan had brought up a few weeks ago that how many times have you done this before? Are we going to hear, like, we don't talk to Longo every week. So in that Purdue game and the Rutgers game, the Rutgers game, did he do it 10 times? Did he do it 5 times? Did he do it 1 time? Did he do it 30 times? So if you're going to make the play right, you kind of are the OC. If they're saying, here's the play, make us right. I mean, is that not coordinating an offense? I get the intention of the question. But I think if you want to get down to the nitty gritty, I would say, yes, he's at least the assistant to the regional manager, assistant to the assistant regional manager.
And I think that's a great point. And just talking a little NFL, like one of the big things on JJ McCarthy coming out of the draft was they let him. He didn't. I don't think he called offensive line protections, or maybe he did some of them, but they let him check to anything he wanted at the line of scrimmage. And like you said, like that basically makes you a co-offensive coordinator. Like they're trusting you to call the play at the line of scrimmage if they don't think the call on the field is correct. And that takes a lot of trust from the coaches and a lot of balls kind of sometimes by the quarterback, but a lot of work too in the film room. But
well, of course, but to that point though, think about it from the defensive perspective. I'll keep it in college and not go to the NFL. Although I could tell you about like the Arizona Cardinals co-offensive coordinator and pass game coordinator. But look at it from just the defensive side. How much do we think Alex Grinch is calling a defense? He's a co-defensive coordinator. Would you
probably
say that
zero?
But
probably zero.
So if it's probably zero for Grinch, do you think Locke is calling more plays and doing more offensive coordinator work that's more than probably zero?
Yes.
So if one's a co-defensive coordinator, I would say yes,
that's
by definition, he is a co-offensive coordinator.
Yeah, you got me there, you know. Yeah, and it's been working. Like we haven't played the best of teams, but it's been working.
But it's confidence, bro. Like this is what we need. These last 2 games are what I wanted to see against the Dakota schools. Now looking back at it, maybe we were a little aggressive thinking that the Dakota schools were as bad. In Western Michigan, like it was Tyler Van Dyke, but what they did against those 2 crap teams is what we've wanted against the crap teams for 2 years.
Yeah.
So if it's just a little bit delayed, sometimes things are better late than never. So if this is now the arc is going up, you got to get confidence somewhere and just rolling up some big. They are scrubs, no doubt, but they still are Big Ten programs. So you can be a scrub and be a Big Ten and not be a scrub and Sacramento State FCS.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of difference.
I mean, yeah, obviously, like, and I feel better after the last 2 weeks, but I'm kind of still at the point where it's like, okay, we need to win this game against Northwestern, and then probably beat Nebraska or Minnesota to guarantee ourselves a bowl game still, just because of how tough the schedule gets. But like you said, that doesn't mean we can't increase our confidence like the team, and we can still increase our confidence as fans with these performances. The Purdue one was big. Like, that's how we should beat a team like Purdue.
Well, if you look back, I think it was either 2017 or 2019, and I know as soon as I pick one of them, I'm going to be wrong. But it was either one of those years. One was a Rose Bowl year, and one was that 13-1 year. We beat Purdue 17-9. I don't remember if it was the 17 year or the 19. So it's like, and those were the teams that were quote unquote really good, and we beat Purdue 17-9. So beating them like their world's largest drum. I mean, that is something we haven't even seen the teams of yesteryear. And I think about it, it was 2019 because I was at the game in 17 and it was in West Lafayette and Purdue was up 3-0 and Drew Brees. That's that whole story I told you about Drew Brees.
Yeah.
That was in 17 and they were up 3-0 in the first quarter and you would have thought the game was over. And then we scored like 35 straight points and TJ Watt had an interception. You get it.
Yeah.
So in 19, the Rose Bowl year, we beat them 17-9.
That's why I don't remember that, but that is wild. Yeah. All right, on to the next question here. We'll go to Robert Sorensen. One of our super fans, will say, always comments on the YouTube comment section. So we appreciate Robert, or appreciate you. Jesus Christ, Brandon, 3 beers might have been too much so far. But we appreciate you and watching the show and always giving us some love and support. But his first question here. Should they only give the ball to Tui in the red zone? Yak and Dupree between the 20s. No? I don't know. I'm down to give Tui the ball anywhere, but like I kind of get the point he's making. Like, he's clearly the power back. I would love to see Dupree get the ball more. I don't know if that'll happen. Yakimelli's played well. I think the coaches really like him. But we'll see. I mean, Dupree's – that dude's a game changer, I think. And the more we can get the ball in his hands, the better. And my thing with Tui is just he's steady for us. We kind of know what we're going to get from him. He's going to run with power between the tackles. He's going to hit you. You're not going to hit him. Just that old school kind of Wisconsin football. So, like, we need to lean on him. I think him, and then as much as Braedyn Locke's kind of opening the running game with the downfield passes, it's like the Andy Reid where it's like you got to run the ball to throw the ball or pass the ball to run the ball, just depending on the situation. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. But like, I mean, all three should be getting. Do you think they should all three get 10 touches plus a game?
Yeah, I would say a bit 10 plus for all three, for sure. Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily want to keep Tui just in the red zone, but I wouldn't be against it in the sense of Yak and Dupree have the opportunity to score. Like, they have the speed and the requisite tools to score from the high red or even outside the red zone. So it's like if you're running them at the 30-yard line, they could rip off a 30-yarder and get a touchdown anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, when the field shrinks, you need a bruiser, and Tui is built like a fire hydrant.
Yeah, dude.
So I'm a big fan of Cade McCaffrey.
Come on now, don't do that. Don't do that to the poor guy, dude.
Have you seen this guy? Have you seen this guy in a crop top? You're welcome. No,
I have, but
he's Cade McCaffrey. But him and Dupree, I like it. I would like to see those two just because of their yards per carry and their skill set. If you're going to take Tui out and you're going to play between the 20s, I'd like to see Longo do more of those two-back sets with those two. Yes. You have Cade that obviously can get, 10, 15 yards a rip. He's not going to be your home run guy. But if the defense has to key on him and try to slow him down, who's probably going to run through arm tackles, you're going to probably get Dupree with one-on-one situations. And I think the part where he's maybe been struggling and only having the similar numbers to what Ches was having, like we were talking about earlier, is when he's in the game and it's just you're in 11 personnel. I mean, you're not really setting him up for success with him because he's not necessarily – if you look at Dylan Jones and Dupree, you can watch Dylan Jones and you can see the vision between the tackles. Dupree is just a weapon. So if you're just going to put him in 11 personnel and just – no lead blocker and he's got to go just, inside zone, outside zone. I think there's better ways to use him and his skill set to like really have him pop.
Agreed. No, agreed. One thing too, while we're kind of talking on the running game, I feel like I've noticed more the last 2 weeks. We're kind of running a little more like counter and power concepts, obviously out of the shotgun, but we're getting the big fellas moving, dude. And I mean, some of the down blocks the guys made against the game on Rutgers, like Jack Nelson on, I forget what touchdown it was for Twee Walker. He had a down block where he took out like 2 or 3 guys. It was absolutely beautiful. Like that's the football we need to see. But I think, and maybe this is just Blazek, like he's such a good offensive line coach. Like it took 4 games for us to kind of get here, but the way like we can scheme this run game with our offensive line, I think is a huge advantage in the Big Ten. And I love, like I said, I love running a little more counter, a little more power concepts, getting that lead blocker. For guys like, Dupree, I mean, anyone really, but guys that like kind of need that. So love that there. And the offensive line's been playing awesome. Kind of looking at the game this week. I think this is going to be a great test for the offensive line. Not that Northwestern's, a powerhouse full of NFL pass rushers, but they do have 15 sacks on the season. Their defense is fairly good. I'm not going to say the best defense line we played because we played Alabama, but they're up there. I mean, you put them up with probably USC's defensive line. So we'll see how the offense kind of copes with that, I guess. And just to playing in Northwestern always scares me with this team. So that's what
you're 100% right. Anytime I think about Northwestern, like ever since Mike Hankwitz left, they've kind of fallen off a little bit defensively. But I always kind of looked at like, even though it's like inverse because it's like a private school, I've always kind of looked at Northwestern as a poor man's Iowa, where it's like they wanted to run very similar things where they would get smarter kids, but Iowa would get more of the corn-fed kids and all the better players, so to speak. I mean, yeah, Northwestern's still going to get year 4s here and there with big brains. But I always kind of looked at if you could take care of Northwestern's front 7, they would usually kind of fare well against Iowa because Iowa's going to run very similar things. It's just they're a lot better at it. And I would say corner play is for every Northwestern corner that went to the league, you could probably find an Iowa one too. So very similar.
Here's the question. More white cornerbacks or more Northwestern cornerbacks who have made the NFL? I don't know the answer, but that's just...
I would say Northwestern because I can think of one. Jason Sehorn, Riley Moss.
You count Cooper DeJean?
Cooper DeJean, so that's 3.
I mean, and back in the day, I don't know if we want to count that because circumstances, but
yeah, I was gonna say I don't count anything before we were still segregating people, so that's why I don't count Minnesota national titles. That I don't count national titles before we could all go to school together.
Yeah, that's like baseball records. It's like, okay, yeah, but that was when they didn't let the best athletes play. So
yeah, so no, I'm right there with you. I think that the Northwestern is. Yeah, I don't remember where we're at. I think we were talking about Yak and Dupree. I think that getting Tywee the ball in the red zone and just letting them plow through people. Oh, but to your point about Blas, sorry, I went the roundabout way.
Sorry, brother.
I would say that, and I don't want to pick on anybody. I told myself I was not going to do it, but I also lied to myself, so I might as well.
Fucking do it. Fucking do it.
So the first one I'll say, outside of 4 offensive line coaches in 4 years, which is difficult for anybody to learn scheme, especially when you go from a Rudolph, which I'm not sure if they were gap or zone, but we're definitely a zone running team now.
Yeah.
So did we go from gap and zone? Because those are 2 different concepts. So I want to throw that factor in there. From everything I've heard from people that interacted with Jack Bicknell, he was a really great human. I don't know that he was demanding enough in this college landscape to really get the boys going, because we saw it last year with snaps and whatnot. And it was just like, it never seemed like there was a real accountability. to get things fixed. Jack Nelson had a tough year. Didn't get to see Nolan Rucci. Like there were so many different things that we like kind of left you wondering. But I think a lot of it too is like when you're talking about like Jack coming down and washing people out and having cut back lanes and stuff. I think sometimes when you have players that have played the position their whole life and run very, very aggressively and look for contact and don't dance in the backfield looking for holes and trying to hit home runs at 6'2", 230, 245, 250, depending. It's going to look a little bit different, right? So it's like Tywee's taking the ball and he's going north as fast as them little legs can go. Cade McCaffrey, he's taking the ball, he's putting a foot in the ground and he's going north. Even Dupree, being a little bit smaller, he's going north. That we don't have a lot of, especially on inside-outside zone. You played offensive line, so you know better than I do. When you get a crease, you got to hit it. Like,
well, you better hit that, else I'm gonna be pissed, dude.
And you can't hold it forever. Like you're going, like they used to say in the NFL, like those people are paid too. Well, it's college football now, and they get paid. The people that the Badgers offensive line are blocking are getting paid too, especially on the defensive line. Like they get paid also to make you not run the ball successfully. So it's like if you get a crease, you have to hit the hole. You can't wait for the perfect setup so you can hit a home run. So I think the offensive line looks better because we have players in the backfield that are doing what is required and asked of them, and they're not necessarily – you get it.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. All right, we'll move on to our next question here. This is also from Robert Sorensen, who, by the way, was the one who suggested the whiteboard for the high left counter. So shout out you, Robert. All right. What is the biggest difference? This is kind of a multi-layered question here. What is the biggest difference for this team? The new guys that are playing or a different game plan by the coaches? And does Longo keep his job now, or is Fickle being more involved with the offense? I think that last one's the biggest question. Because before the Purdue game, and I was right there with everybody, we're like, there's no way Phil Longo comes back last year. Now you do this the last two games. Okay, let's see how the rest of the season plays out. So where are you? Let's start with that. Where are you on Phil Longo? Does he keep his job, or is it Fickle being more involved? It's a two-part question.
Yeah, I think he keeps his job if it continues. Yeah, like we said before, we have to be cognizant of the competition. So for example, does Longo keep a job, or is Fickle being more involved? I think it's a two-part question, but I think to answer the second part first, I don't know how much Fickle's been involved, other than he knows it's not going well and he's doing whatever he can to either motivate or do whatever. Sometimes when you're pressed, do you kind of like, do people feel the tension? I'm sure they do. So, but to this day, I don't know how much he's actually like dictating anything other than like, hey, score some fucking points.
Yeah.
That's what we're supposed to do here on offense. Does he keep his job? If it continues, now obviously you have to winning games.
You have to win games.
Yeah, you get. So I mean, can it be Brian Ferentz where you're winning 10-9? Like, you probably still won't keep that, even if you go 10-2 and you win every game by 1 point and you don't score over 20. You're probably still not keeping your job. But he could have a game where he wins against Northwestern 50-6. But if you go play Penn State and it's 24-3, and then you play Oregon and it's 49-6, and you can't score, you could still finish 8-4. But if you can't score on any defense with a pulse, I still think it's one of those things. Like you look at it, a perfect example is Brian Ferentz.
Yeah,
they had their 25 points per game, whatever.
They put in his fucking contract, dude.
They put in his contract, and not only that, but he went 10-2 with Deacon Hill and still doesn't have a job.
Yeah.
So winning clearly didn't hear everything. Like that's what I'm saying. 10-2 and you lose your job. Like it's like the old Marty Schottenheimer when he went 13-3 with the Chargers and got canned. It's like, all right, clearly it wasn't all about winning. So yeah. I think that one's a little bit harder to tell because this is everything we always talk about when it came to Greg Gard. What are the expectations and what does success look like? Like, is it wins? Is it points per game? we've never really been like, we don't know how to gauge this. They only know these metrics internally. So how does Fickle look at it? Like, obviously, you can score 600 points a game. Or obviously, that's aggressive. You you could score 60 points a game. If you're 2-10, nobody's keeping their job.
Yeah, it don't matter. Yeah.
So obviously, at the end of the day,
At the end of the day, it's winning.
But then you get down to, what if you're not winning? How do you determine? So if you're 6-6, how do you determine whether you keep people or not?
To me, the biggest thing would be like year-over-year improvement, whether it's points per game, I mean yards. There's a whole bunch of stats you can look at and metrics you can look at.
Even right now on their trajectory, they're on their trajectory to be lower points per game this year than they were last year. Even after those 2 games.
Did not know that, but like I don't know. I guess that's where it's tough as a head coach. Like how do you make that decision, and what fact? Like, do you weigh the schedule you played?
That's the next question: is the schedule? Yeah. Does that matter?
I think it does a little bit.
I mean, how is it not?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing that matters, though, whether Phil Longo keeps his job. I mean, I say for some reason the Badgers rattle off like 6 or 7 in a row, which I don't think anyone thinks is going to happen. That'd be insane.
I got 10-2 on the table still, buddy. 10-2 still on the table.
Oh, we'll take that off the table. Let me tell you that. But fuck, now I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, and if you're not rattling off 7 in a row,
yeah, like I mean, you have to take everything. Like, okay, strength of schedule. How much does Phil Longo like? The biggest thing is, and this is what I was getting at before I forgot. But like, how do the players respond to him? Whether our record's 10-2 or 6-6, like that's a huge thing. Like, how are the players responding to you in the locker room? Are we making improvements? Are we getting better? Like, are we getting better? Like, that's the biggest thing. If he thinks we're getting better, the locker room trusts him. I bet you he gives him 1 more year. But if we come out because after Northwestern, we got Penn State, Iowa, Oregon. Like, if we come out of those 3 games and don't score over like 20 points in any of them, then everyone's going to be bad till, well, Phil Longo needs to go. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. So, a lot of moving. Yeah, a lot of moving parts. A lot of my brain cells trying to remember where we were at there. So, apologize to the listeners, but hey, you got to deal with me. All right. And then we'll kind of expand on that. Like I said, Robert had a couple questions there. Is the biggest difference for this team that the new guys are playing or a different game plan by the coaches? And I know we kind of touched on that earlier where I said 95% of the Badgers fans have been clamoring like for the young guys. And like, I think both of these can be true because it's like we need to play like the newer young guys, but also the game plan has to change if we play them. And I think both of those kind of have happened a little bit in the last 2 weeks, and we're starting to see success. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. And I think what I had brought up last week with Dylan is you can't underestimate the amount of your success based on the amount of reps you have, right? So it's like you look at Locke, he was thrown in there against Iowa, no reps with all the ones. So it looked really clunky. Like, he's not used to throwing to Bryson Green. He's not used to throwing to CJ Williams and Chimere Dike. And even this year in the first game, he wasn't used to throwing to Bryson and Will Pauling. You know who he's used to throwing to when he's on the second
team? Fucking Vinny, baby. My cousin Vinny, dog.
Vinny, Tretch, Cade, Dupree on the second team. He's used to having Kevin Haywood block for him. He's used to having Ben Shaw out there blocking. He's comfortable with the second team. So as these guys get reps, time after time after time, when you know you're going to throw that go ball to Vinny, you have repped that all spring, all summer. Because remember, TVD was getting all the ones. Vinny was on the 2. He wasn't getting a lot of 1 reps. So it's like you get reps after reps after reps after reps on the second team. Now when you guys get to play together, now you can pick up on a bigger scale. You look at it like when Jamar Chase came into the NFL with the Bengals. Oh, how does he and Joe Burrow have such a great connection that they that season they tear the world on fire. Well, how many reps did they have at LSU?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like he could have sat there and he could have repped it out with T. Higgins every single game. It's not going to be the same as those hours and hours and hours and hours that you put in. It's like that's all Locke has done. He's been here 2 springs and 2 falls throwing to Vinny Anthony, throwing to Tretch Kekahuna. Like Tretch is a redshirt freshman, not a true freshman. He's been getting all those reps when he wasn't playing. He was getting them from Locke. So I think all of that's just kind of proving it out now. So I think a lot of it is the players, but it's also going to be the scheme because Phil Longo didn't get to where he is by just running the same play. He knows what are you comfortable with? Like any offensive coordinator will ask their quarterbacks, like, what are the 4 or 5 plays when we have to have a needed play? Like, what do you want us to call on needed plays? That is going to vary from him to TVD to Mordecai to everyone. They might not want to throw a slant on 3rd and 5 because they know that the ball's going to get tipped. Let me get a little check down, or let me throw an out route. Like he's pretty good at throwing those little, arrow routes to the sideline to Will Pollard for 7 yards.
Those are long throws, man. Those are tough throws.
And he puts his all into it, but it's like that might be what he likes on those downs. Now, obviously, you're going to have defensive scheme against that, so you're going to have to be able to adjust. But I think it is a little bit of the play calling to kind of cater your quarterback because that's what good coordinators do. And I think it's honestly the players and all the repetitions they've had.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. All right, we got a few questions left here. I know we're kind of getting crunched on time, but these are a little more Badgers After Dark questions, if you will, Ryan. We're kind of taking this old school here. So we'll start with the first one. Another one from Deputy Dong, dude. Triple dong today. Gotta love it. Absolutely just beautiful to have a triple dong. Broken pool cue. Jesus Christ, Brandon. Broken pool cue tossed into the middle. Which of the 4 of you on the show are coming out on top? So me, you, Dylan, or Jason. Also, he added, P.S. We know it ain't Dylan. But little does he know, Dylan has like 30 trophies sitting at his parents' house for I don't know if it's like karate or like Muay Thai or something, but he's got like a ton of first place trophies for like some MMA type shit. And I've seen Dylan D up in intramural basketball at MATC, and the intensity and psychoticness on his face. I think Dylan's walking out, dude. Dylan's low key. I mean, he's like the nicest guy, my best friend, one of the best people I know. But like, when it comes to like being competitive, like if we all have like who's getting out of this room, Dylan's fucking nuts. So he might fuck us all up with that pool cue. And me, who knows where I'm putting that pool cue? What about you?
Well, I have to agree with you on Dylan. Obviously, I don't have the history. I've only known him obviously a couple years now. I'm going to pick Dylan to come out, not because I knew about all those exceptional trophies, but I'm going to go with 2 reasons. Number 1, he's going to have the stamina. He's in great shape.
Yeah, I'm fat as fuck, and Jason's a self-proclaimed pussy, so we're out of it.
And I'm a coach because I can't do it. I can't play, so I just coach. But if anybody I think sometimes when you have an online presence and you have a platform, and you see Dylan, he's got a handsome face, and he's obviously trimmed and toned. You got to see this sumbitch in real life. Like he's like what is Dylan? Probably 6'1", 6'2". He's taller than me. I'm 5'10".
He's probably 6'1". He's taller than me,
and he's
and I'm 5'12".
I would say Dylan.
Yeah, I would definitely say Dylan. The only thing is, if I get a hold of him, he might have problems.
That's big people math. Don't you let your hands on you.
If I get on top of you, dude, you are fucked. Let me tell you that. All right, another one here from Badger Theys. We're going to have back-to-back questions from Badger Theys. The first one, I have a general question for the group. Why is it if it's midday and you're watching a movie, you're considered lazy, a bum, and you're losing brain cells, etc.? But if you're reading a fiction novel, you're considered big brain, intellectual, and productive. Isn't it the same thing? I almost want to fucking preach, brother. That's what I want to say. Preach. I can get just as much from watching like a movie or documentary as people can get from reading a book. So I'm all in on this. I think both can be productive.
Yeah, I don't think reading's that productive because when I could watch something in 2 hours and then you want me to read it over like 2 months, like I got a reading level of a second grade autistic kid. So for me, like reading the book is not going to be a great idea for me. I know all of the self-proclaimed readers and nerds out there will say, "Well, you're missing all the fine details." Like, just in life is too short. I got kids. I don't have a ton of time. I'm all about efficiency. If you can give me everything I need to know in 2 hours instead of 200 pages, sign me up for that. If you want to call me a bum, that's fine. I'll let you know what the ending to your book when you're still on chapter 2.
Yeah, and like I mean, you said your reading level. I got tested out of reading, dude. I've been reading at a college level since like the 3rd grade, according to the school system, and I fucking hate reading. So I'm just like, I'd rather watch a documentary. Like, if you can give me the same information in an hour and a half instead of me taking 6 days to read a book, sign me up. And the only thing though is like a really, really good book. I mean, I need to be hooked within like the first probably 30 pages. But a really, really good book, I think, is better than like a really, really good like movie or documentary. I will say that. So, but it takes a lot.
I'll take your word for it.
It takes a lot to like kind of get my attention on that. But no, I'm with you. Both can be productive. Both can be big brain. All right, and then last one from Badger Days, Ryan. This is my question of the year right here. Would you rather stroke a silverback gorilla off or teach him to stroke you?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, yes, I do. That's a great question.
Well, I like to think of myself as a leader, so I think I might have to do. Actually, I'm not going to do any teaching because I can't do grip control. So I'm not trying to get my parts yanked off of my persons. So I guess I just got to knuckle up and hope he enjoys his session, I guess.
See, for me, I'd have multiple questions like, what's he packing? Because I know I'm right around the national average, brother. Like, what is this gorilla packing? How big are his hands? What are his teeth like? Like, there's a multitude of questions that I need answered here.
What does teeth have to do with it?
Dude, who knows where this is gonna go, man? This is gonna get fucking crazy. But I mean, it is a tough one. But if I have to choose, like, I'd rather nut than have someone else nut. That's kind of where I'm at in life.
Fair enough.
So, great question, and we'll end it up there before Dylan gets mad at me and we get kicked off of our YouTube channel. All right, last thing I had, Ryan, here. I know we only got a couple minutes left. Upcoming game against Northwestern. I know we kind of talked about the defense, how this is going to be a nice test for the offensive line, and how we've struggled at Northwestern. I think we're 5-9 in our last 14 at Northwestern. I know we're playing on a soccer field by the lake now, so we'll see how that goes. But the Badgers are favored by 7 points, and this is on ESPN. The Badgers are -7, and the over-under is 41.5. What do you got for me?
Yeah, I mean, whether it's a soccer field by the lake or literally a Piggly Wiggly parking lot in the north side of Chicago, I don't really care where they're playing. I got the Badgers winning and covering and the over. I have this one more of a 31-13. If Northwestern can get to double digits, I'd be surprised. Our defense has been playing a lot better, and I watched probably way more than I probably ever should have Northwestern football over the course of the year. A couple drives here and there, and they look like a junior varsity outfit. So Wisconsin big again. I don't know because of the defense if they'll get to another 40 burger, which we're back-to-back 40 burgers with a 50 in there. But I got 31-13. Win, cover, and the over.
All right. I love it. I got the Badgers covering at the -7. I like the under here. I'm with you. I've watched some Northwestern football. That offense, man, is brutal. So I don't know if depends what Badger defense shows up. I don't know if they're going to reach the 10 to 13 points that I think they need to for the over to hit. So give me the Badgers -7. Give me the over. Didn't look at the money line, but shit, give me that too. Badgers. And then we got one more thing here before we leave. As always, we're going to end the show with a little geography fun fact. Ryan, our fun fact brings us to the greatest nation on earth today, the United States of America, brother. Say what you will about it. A lot of political turmoil we don't need to get into, but ain't nothing like the US of A, man. But so, fun fact here. The U.S. is the westernmost and easternmost country in the world. Shout out Alaska. Yeah, because you got the Aleutian Islands that they go up and they're like, I think it's like 55 miles like away from Russia or something.
Yeah, they're very close on a globe. They're very, very close.
Yeah, yeah. But so I thought that was interesting. The U.S. is the westernmost and easternmost country in the world. So as always, when you with geography there, if anyone's lasted this 50 minutes and 54 seconds and counting, I appreciate it. I am not near half as the host as Dylan is. That's why I don't do it. But thank you guys for joining in. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for the mailbag questions as always. You guys come up with some great questions, a lot of funny questions, which is right up my alley. And for good measure, we'll add number 6 to the counter, baby.
There we go.
Wisconsin.